Hi, Claudia here from Create with Claudia, and today I'm bringing you the 6th block in my mystery quilt for 2020. I cannot believe it. We're already halfway through, actually more than halfway through. We only have 5 more blocks to go until we put it all together in December. I hope you've been having fun joining in. And this is a free quilt along that you can join in at any time. If you visit my website, www.createwithclaudia.com, you can find all of the information. This month we're doing another traditional block, and I think this one reminds me a little bit of a butterfly. It's called the Old Maid's Puzzle. Here it is. Hopefully you can see it. I love it. It has a lot of half square triangles in it. It's pretty easy to put together, although there are a couple little tricky spots, but I think you'll find it's not too hard. So don't forget to hit subscribe so you can keep up to date on all of my videos. I do try to post something weekly. I'm not always successful, but I do try. But I do post daily on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter at Create with Claudia. And you can see sneak peeks of upcoming projects, patterns that I'm working on, and just some other fun stuff that I do on my website. So I appreciate you watching. Enjoy the video. Okay, so we're ready to put together the block for June. And I'm going to show you what fabrics you're going to need, and then we'll get going on sewing, the best part. For fabric A, and every month I use the same fabric A, sort of like I do in the block. This is the one I took for pictures for the block tutorial on my website. My fabric A is always this white with green polka dots. I think it adds a nice continuity to the whole quilt look, and you'll see at the end of the year when we put it all together. I do think one background fabric does this pattern justice. So again, my fabric A is this white with pink with green polka dots in the picture tutorial, and throughout the videos you'll see that I've used this sort of, I guess it's like a darker beige or a gold, and that's what I've been using for the background for fabric A. So that's my fabric A, and this month for fabric A you're going to need a fat 1/8. For fabric B you're going to need a 9" by 5" piece of fabric, and for fabric C you're going to need a 6" square. So not a ton of fabric for this one except for fabric A, and now I'll show you what cuts we need. So for fabric A, you're going to need 2 squares, and this is cutting for both blocks. I'm going to show you how to make one, but you're going to need 2 blocks for this month. So for fabric A, you're going to need 2 squares cut 4 1/4 inches. So 2 squares cut 4 1/4 inches. You're going to need 4 squares. You're going to need 4 squares cut 2 3/4 inches. And you're going to need 8 squares cut 2 inches. So that's your fabric A. So for fabric B, which is this green, and that equates to this yellow, these are the bigger half square triangles. This block actually is made up of all half square triangles except for these small little corner squares here. You're going to need 2 squares cut 4 1/4 inches. And finally for fabric C, you're going to need 4 squares cut 2 3/4 inches, and fabric C will be these smaller half square triangles with the blue part of these smaller half square triangles. So that's sort of what it's going to look like except in different colors. So that was for both blocks. Like I said, we're making 2 blocks this month, and as always use that scant 1/4 inch seam allowance when you're making these. So let's get started on one block. So to make one block, you're going to need, first you're going to have to make all of the half square triangles. So to make the larger ones, you're going to need one of the large squares, the 4 1/4 inch squares of fabric A, and one of the squares of, one of the 4 1/4 inch squares of fabric B. And the first thing you're going to do, like we have in the last months, you're going to draw a diagonal line on the back from corner to corner, and this is going to be your sewing guide. I'll make it darker so you can see it a little bit better. There you go. So that's going to be your sewing guide. You're not going to sew on this line, you're going to sew along each side, and you're going to use that 1/4 inch seam allowance when you're sewing. So then you're going to take your large square of the fabric B, and you're going to lay the lighter fabric on top so you can see that line. And you're just going to make sure they're nice and even. Make sure you cut them right. Sometimes Might not be quite perfect, but we're going to trim these down so you don't have to worry about it too much. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to sew down each side of that line that you just drew 1/4 inch. So I'm going to do that and I'll be right back. All right, so here we are. I'm going to trim off all these little threads like so. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my ruler and my rotary cutter and I'm going to cut on the line that you drew. So you can sort of see there's the line you drew and there's the two seams on each side. I can see, you probably see it a little bit better on here because it's darker. But you're going to cut now on that line that you just drew to split this block in half. All right. So open it up and there you have a half square triangle. So for out of those two pieces of fabric, you're going to get 2 half square triangles. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to press, and I'm going to press to the dark, and then we're going to trim these down. All right, so they're nicely pressed. They look nice and crisp, but they're still not quite the right size. I always like to make my half squares triangles a little bit larger so that I can trim them down, because it's really hard to make a half square triangle and come out to the exact perfect size you need. So I'm going to show you how to trim one down. And you're going to trim these down. These units are going to be, when finished, 3.5 inches. So you're going to trim this down to 3.5 inches. So you're going to take this ruler and match up the diagonal line. I love this square ruler. It's 6.5 inch square ruler. It has a nice diagonal line printed on it. And you're going to line that up along there. And you're going to trim right along there. Make it nice and even, because what you're doing is you're making your starting cut. All right, so there's your corner, and that's the one, that's where you're going to put your 3.5 inch measurement to get these so they're nice and perfect. So you take your ruler and you find your 3.5 inch mark and you square it up here with the 3.5 down here. And there are lots of rulers out there, lots of brands. You just want to line it up, make sure everything's lined up nicely. Okay, and then you're going to trim. Helps if you open the rotary cutter. There you go. So there's your 3.5 inch half square triangle. I'm going to go ahead and cut the next one, and I'll be right back. Okay, so these two are ready. I'm going to set these aside because we still have to make 4 more half square triangles, and I will show you those now. For the smaller ones, and that's for these ones, these small ones with the blue, we need our fabric C. We're going to need 2 squares of your fabric C, and then 2 squares of fabric A for the one block. And just like we did with the larger half square triangle, we're going to take our lighter ones and draw a diagonal line on the back. Like so. And then we're going to take 1 square of fabric C, line them up right sides facing, and sew down along the line. You're not going to sew on that line. You're going to sew 1/4 inch on either side of that line, or on both sides of that line. And you're going to do that with both of these pieces of fabric. So I'm going to do this, since I've already shown you one time. I'm going to go ahead and do these, and I'll show you what the finished product looks like. Here they are. Now they haven't been trimmed down yet, so now we need to trim these smaller ones down, and these are a little bit smaller, so they're a little bit trickier to trim down, but they're not bad, especially with that ruler. These get trimmed down to 2 inches square. So I'm going to trim all of these smaller half square triangles to 2 inches square. And I do it the same way I did the others, where I line up that diagonal line with this one. Alright, so here are 4 half square triangles, the smaller ones, ready for our block. And now we're ready to assemble the whole block and sew it together. So for that you're going to need the 2 larger half square triangles you made and then the 4 smaller ones. And then you're going to need 4 of these small 2-inch squares we cut out of fabric A. And here's how you lay it out. You're going to take one of these, like so. You want all of the half square triangles, sort of the diagonal should be all facing the same way. One of the small squares here, one of them here, like so. Make sure I'm doing it the right way. Sometimes I have to look at another block or the design just to make sure I'm laying them out right. I have many times had to resew a block because I didn't lay it out quite right. Alright, so now this is ready to piece together, and what I'll do is I'll piece these smaller squares first together. I'll do the row, and then piece the rows together. Now I will pin for those, so I'm going to go ahead and sew each of these rows together first. Okay, so these are done, they're pressed nicely, and now I'm going to sew this little sort of mini row to this one here to make that larger square, so it makes it easier to piece when we're done. And I will pin for this. I like to pin just to get that nice sharp point right here that's going to be there right in the middle. So I'll just put one pin in right there, and I sort of nest those seams. Like so. And then I will sew along there a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I'm going to do that with the other one as well. Alright, these are trimmed up, they're ready to go, and they should measure about 3.5 inches square like these, and that's how you're going to place them. And then what we're going to do is we're going to sew this to this and this square to this square and piece the whole block together. It's pretty simple now. You just have the 4 units, and we're going to put those together. Alright, so these 2 rows have been put together, so now I'm ready to put the 2 rows like so together and finish up the block. Just make sure to pin there so you get that nice crisp seam. Okay, so fingers crossed that I got all the points right. There, nice point, and the center, see how nice and sharp that is when you pin? I'm going to press this and I'll be right back. Alright, so here's the block, all finished, ready to go. We're going to set those aside till December when we put the whole quilt top together. This is again was the old Maid's puzzle. Each block we're making 2 of them this month, and they should measure 6.5 inches square. I'll show you the one on the blog too. I like that one. I don't know which one I like better. They're both really pretty. Christmassy colors, and then this bright sort of summery look. So I hope you're having fun with this quilt along, my mystery quilt along. It's the first one I've done. Cannot believe we've already done 6 months. This is the 6th month. This is June. It is a free quilt along, so head over to my website. You don't even need to join if you just sign up for if you sign up for my newsletter. Of course, you'll get the pattern on the first of the month. I post it over on my Facebook account as well. I have a group dedicated specifically for this quilt along, as well as my Facebook page, and I post it on Instagram and Twitter as well. So thank you so much for watching. So if you liked what you saw, go ahead and hit subscribe so you can get all the latest videos that I post. Thank you so much for watching, and I can't wait to see you next month. Have a great day.